brand called You, an interview with Pako Moshaga. Many different factors contribute to a personal brand, from the way that you communicate online to the types of stories you tell. It can also incorporate visual variables such as the photographs you publish and the types of graphics you use. But what is personal branding and why is it important? And how can you make the most of it? Our guest in this episode is a personal branding consultant, writer, and speaker. He speaks and writes on the power of presentation, personal branding, positive self-image, and the impact on outward behavior. Pako Moshaga is a Botswana, should ask him how to spell that, or pronounce that, African-based personal brand consultant, writer, and speaker. He speaks and writes on the power of positive self-image and its impact on outward behavior. He further speaks on the importance of a personal brand in today's world. Pako has spoken at events hosted by Botswana's top learning institutions, Toastmasters Southern Africa, Botswana government, NGOs, and corporates. As a writer, he has contributed articles for national publications with Botswana. Pako has also been featured on 6 local nationwide radio stations as a personal branding expert. Pako shares what personal branding is all about and how you can curate aspects of your own personal personality and present yourself in the best possible light. Welcome to the show, Pako.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, glad to have you. Give us that snapshot, our $1 million question here, of your faith, family, and professional background that's led you to the work you're doing now.
Right. So in terms of my faith, I'm a Christian, obviously. Got born again in 2008. And it's been quite a journey of growth and success and being stretched in many, many ways. My faith is a central part of who I am. It's the foundation that I use in my career, business, family, whatever I do is all founded on Christian principles. Then I've been married for just over 5 years, about 5.5 years now. I'm blessed with 2 wonderful kids, 2 girls, and that's just another level of bliss altogether. Then in terms of how I got into the field that I'm in, so a few years ago, I took the course on mindset performance, and the course helped to show me how I was limiting myself through my own thinking, how my self-image, or the way that I see myself, affected the level of success that I could accomplish in life, how far I could dream, and all sorts of things about success and growth. And from that, I grew personally. And then I said, what if I turn this into a business that allows me to help other people achieve the same level of growth and success, if not more than what I've achieved through this course?
I love that. You know, I was really looking forward to having you on the show. My branding photos are old. They're like 6 years old. I need to update them. And so I have been really in the idea of branding and all of this. And I think you're exactly right. I was thinking more photos and things like that, but it's so much more. It's so deep, much deeper as I've gotten into it. And so tell our audience, you hear about branding and then you hear about personal branding. What exactly is the difference and what are they?
So personal branding is essentially what people say about you in your absence. It sounds like gossip, but it's not gossip actually. It's what people say about you based on what they see you do, what they hear you say, and how they see you treat other people, as well as how you carry yourself. So a personal brand is a summation of your character and your person as well. Now, branding is more of a corporate thing when it comes to branding companies and corporations and the like. So personal is all about you having your own personal brand, because all of us essentially, we are products. We sell ourselves as the best business consultant, the best podcast host, or the best accountant, whatever it is that you are in, you are constantly selling yourself as the best person in that field.
Yeah, I've never heard it said that way, but it's very powerful and it makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things I was also looking forward about having you on the show is really cultural differences of branding. Obviously, you're from Africa, and I would love to know, I don't know if you've worked with people in the United States or you have a contrast, but what's your sense of the different approaches culturally of branding? So, for example, you're in Africa, and like from other countries, including the United States. How does it really vary across cultures?
So I'll start with Africa, where I was born and raised. So in Africa, especially Southern Africa, the culture is big on being humble, being very noble.
Huh.
It's a big part of African culture, especially in these parts of Africa. It's seen as a noble pursuit, as something that is encouraged, that the more humble and the more you
Mhm.
almost debase yourself, the more socially acceptable it is.
Hmm.
And I think that's one thing that stands out about the culture that we have in Africa. This was actually said by a comedian the other day, Trevor Noah. He's from South Africa, and he said the same thing when interviewing an artist, I think, from West Africa. So it's something which is fairly common in the region.
Hmm.
And so because of this, when you brand yourself, there's a fine line between branding yourself and seeming boastful,
Mm-hmm.
because the context of the environment is around humility, being noble, and not trying to seem as good as you really are. So personal branding often comes across as trying to outshine everyone, trying to walk in pride, in a sense. And so in my line of work here, the first years of business, I had to spend time in explaining how personal branding is not boasting, it's not
Mm-hmm.
being prideful, it's
Mm-hmm.
about profiling yourself more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then the difference between branding oneself here and in America and other countries in the first world is that American culture is more confidence based or
Mm-hmm.
dominance based.
Mm-hmm.
The culture takes not really pride per se, but the culture encourages one to believe in themselves and talk well about themselves and just own your journey, own your success, and be glad and proud of your success as well. So that's a major cultural difference. And so the way we approach branding here is that we take into context the environment and the culture and the traditions that we have, and we align our branding approach with um, that context in mind.
Yeah, that is really, really useful insight. It's been interesting because one of the things, when you're coming on, I've had a couple of guests from Africa, and I've always enjoyed them. And you nailed it. Why? I highly value humility. I really am turned off by pride, and I have just experienced Africans, Native Africans in that way. And I never really thought of that as a cultural value. What's interesting is you were talking, because I think you nailed too the confidence thing in the United States or other Western, I don't know about other Western countries, but here, what's neat is if you can take some of the things from other cultures and apply, because I do not like confidence here with pride. I do not like that. Confidence with humility actually stands out because it's not commonly done. So it's interesting just to analyze that. So just want to kind of go back into why invest in a personal brand? What's the purpose? What can it do for you? What can it do for your clients? And then, of course, the idea of what's the difference, when should you be branding your company? When should you branding yourself? That kind of distinction. So let's get into the meat of this. What are your thoughts on some of that?
So I'd say all of us have a personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
because a brand is, as I said, what people say about you. So think of it as a label that people have put on you. But just like your clothing, the label is on the back. So usually you can't see it. So you don't know what people say about you in your
Mm-hmm.
absence. And so we all have brands that tend to be natural brands. We are not intentional about managing our brands. And so our brands tend to be dominated by the negative traits and aspects in us, like late coming,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe not being polite to everyone, or maybe treating people differently based on either their culture or their race or their level of success and things like that. So people
Mm-hmm.
tend to define us, unfortunately, based on the negative traits that we have if we don't manage and become more aware of our brands. So in terms of who needs a personal brand, everyone who desires to be successful in life, whether it's in your career, a business, or in sports, whatever it is that you endeavor to do, you need to have a personal brand so that you can manage the view and the perceptions that people have of you, and also so that you put your best foot forward in branding yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, it's funny when you made your definition of brand, personal branding. It's different than what other people I've heard. I've heard them say your personal brand is the customer experience that they have with you. But what you just said makes a lot of sense, because that they kind of blend the two. Because if you know you're sloppy, you know you're or disorganized, or like you said, you're late, or you know, those kind of things are going to stand out, and that's going to also affect the customer experience. But I think the way you put it was very useful, that people tend to really notice the negatives. So part of it's minimizing the negatives. So of course, you know, those are habits, or how you're showing up, and self-awareness, being aware of those and being more intentional, like you said, not being random about it. But then there's the aspect of branding, you know, their visual variables, like the fonts, the graphics, the photographs, all of that. How important is that? And how do you encourage your clients to incorporate that into their branding as well?
So all those aspects are critical,
Okay.
because as human beings, we are visual. We look and we judge. And so the primary element of your personal brand is your presentation, is what people see when they engage and interact with you. And so your fonts and your graphics and your pictures are the first encounter that people will have with your brand. So if it's someone that has never met you before, has never heard of you before, the first instance that they have of dealing with you is what you present to them, whether it's in person or online.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're talking about online, your fonts and your graphics and the likes, these all speak to the brand personality that you have, and the tone as well that you want to have. If I were to talk to someone that has a corporate, formal type of personal brand, you would find that the type of fonts and graphics and pictures that they use would lean more towards office culture, corporate culture. So they'd be very, very formal, very, very serious, and aligned to the type of target market that they want to appeal to.
Mm-hmm.
And so your brand needs to be aligned to the personality that you want to extend to the rest of the world. And it also needs to talk to the type of people that you're trying to attract, as in the target market that you want to appeal to.
Yeah. And that's no small feat. I actually worked with a personal branding expert when I, you know, 6 years ago when I did these photos. And so now I'm rethinking of all of that. And now I'm more grown up as a business owner, and I, you know, have a different idea of, you know, more clarity about my target market. But it is a real skill to know, okay, how do you take what you know about your market and translate that into the visual images, what to do, what to not do. So that's very interesting. So are there any do's and don'ts that you have in terms of building a brand, or common mistakes that people make? Because there's really a lot to it.
Yeah, so in terms of the do's and don'ts, I'll start with the do's.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do, first thing, is to take your presentation seriously. The way that you appear to the rest of the world, to the world around you, and to the online world as well. You want to be intentional about how you dress and the type of pictures that you put up, and just how you present yourself in general. Then the second thing is that you want to manage the speech and the engagements that you have with people, being that often what social media has made most of us prone to is to speak without filtering our thoughts. So I'm sure you've seen a number of people going on a rant online. or just venting about something online. And so in building a brand, you need to be mindful of what you communicate to the rest of the world, because it's a reflection on you. As much as you may be justified in whatever issue you have, you need to be mindful around, how do I put this out? How do I communicate my frustrations with the world around me? Is it being kind? Is it being courteous? Am I being professional in how I'm carrying myself online? Then the don'ts, you want to avoid arguing with people online. This is something that's fairly common. I've seen it a number of times. We get into disagreements online on concepts, on theology, on so many different things. And these arguments that we have online are a reflection of our principles and a reflection of our brands as well. So you want to manage what you put up, what you comment on online. You want to always think twice, that if this was to go viral, would it look good on me? Would it add value to my brand, or would it take value away from my brand? Then the second thing that you don't want to do is to be inconsistent with how you deal with people and how you treat people. So a big part of a brand is about being thought of or being referred to in the same light by everyone. People should know you consistently as the same person. So who you are online, who you are offline should be the same person. The same character, the same mannerisms, the same beliefs, the same values and ethics that you have in person should be aligned to those that you present online. That's a major mistake that people tend to make, in thinking that building a brand means coming up with a persona to paint online, of a picture of this perfect person that you aren't really that way in real life. You know? So that's a major don't.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I did one of the don'ts. I got really annoyed during the election, and I typically don't post anything personal, but I was very triggered, and I posted something, and had a couple people unlike my email, unsubscribe from my email, half my tribe liked it, half the people in the world didn't like it. So learn that lesson. So when you, as you're evolving, you don't know all these do's and don'ts, and you probably have. I know I have. I've made errors in a lot of these things, maybe not seeing the importance, like showing up to the networking groups late consistently, or things like that, and not really thinking about, well, how's that reflecting my brand, etc. So, you're not going to be perfect. When you evolve and you didn't do everything perfect, what's your advice for people like that? As you're growing into this, you're understanding the importance of all this, but maybe you've done some things, not major faux pas, but some images that aren't flattering. What's your advice to people in that situation?
So if you want to rebrand, there are a couple of steps. The first step that you want to take is to get an appreciation of where your brand currently is. So this is whereby you would get to understand what label has been put on you. And you can only do this by asking people. So what I say to my clients is, choose 3 to 4 objective people in your circle, and make it a mix: people from church, work, corporate, business, and the like. Objective and honest people who aren't shy to tell you the truth. And then ask them, what do people say about me in my absence? What are the views and the perceptions that people have of me? What kind of person do people understand me to be? And it's a hard question to ask, because the answer that comes is usually quite heavy to handle as well. But it helps you to really get to where your brand is at the moment, because you may think that everyone loves you and you're just the best person in town, but people focus on the negatives that they see in you, and you aren't aware of that, because, as I said earlier on, the label is on your back, and so you miss that. So the first step is definitely to start with understanding what views and perceptions people have of you. And then you gauge those. Are those accurate? Are those fair? And then you seek them out. The ones that are accurate and that are fair is what you decide to work on. And then another thing to do here is to come up with brand principles. And these are basically ethics that you decide to live by, values that you decide will guide your life going forward, because you're trying to rebrand and to redefine yourself. And you can only do that if you have a definition of where you are going. So the brand principles serve like a roadmap to keep you on track going forward.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I could talk to you all day, Pako. Okay, but you started your journey on really going internal, the self-image, and that really affected all the things you're describing. It affected your presentation, who you're attracting, who you're repelling, your first impression. So take us back to that place. How much does that internal work have to do with branding, and what do you recommend for people with that?
So the internal work is the starting point. And when I work with clients, the first thing actually isn't the image and the presentation and the social media and the pictures and the likes. The first phase is actually 100% internal. So your self-image is what you think of yourself, is how you view yourself. And all of us see ourselves either as above average, average, or below average. And so our brands, our external brands, the way you dress, carry yourself, the way you address other people and the likes, is an extension of your self-image. So think of someone with a negative self-image. So a negative self-image would be someone that is filled with self-doubt, someone that is shy and extremely reserved and the likes. And the way this plays out in their brand is that they will tend to avoid eye contact. They will tend to mumble instead of talking out loud. They'll tend to avoid public interactions, and they'll dress in a way that allows them to blend into the background. They won't want to be seen much, and so they will dress in a very minimalistic way that allows them to just basically pass by unnoticed. Because they have a negative self-image, it manifests itself in how they present themselves to the rest of the world. So in building your brand, you really want to start with assessing your self-image, because our actions stem from our thoughts. There's a Bible verse that says, as a man thinks, so is he. And this is exactly what I'm describing, that you can't act out something that you don't visualize first in your head. So people that are confident and outgoing and they are highly successful when it comes to building their brands are people that view themselves internally as being capable, able, and having a lot of potential as well.
So very, very useful. So as I'm thinking about that, all of this can be quite expensive. Having a professional, consult with you on this, then just the website upgrades, the color upgrades, the wardrobe, the whatever, the color in your hair, whatever you do. So what do you recommend? I mean, it's easy to break the bank with a lot of this, especially when you're starting out, or maybe you're still kind of getting over the hump of being a profitable, prosperous business. So what are some suggestions of how to not stay within a budget, but still be attentive to this?
So I'd say what you'd want to do is to appreciate that personal branding it's a science and it's an art. So my advice would be, take an online course on personal branding. A number of courses online offered either for free or for a fairly minimal fee. I know it's offered, I think, on Udemy, on Coursera. I think edX also has this course.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll take you through the basics and the foundations and the principles of building a personal brand. And you can apply those in your own life. Then
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, what you can also do is to observe how successful brands build their personal brands.
Mm-hmm.
So look for someone in your field that has been elevated to the level of an expert, that is regarded as an expert, and they are called to speak at events or to write or to do whatever it is within that field, and observe their brand. What is it about them that makes them stand out from everyone else? And you'll find that it's in the detail, it's in the quality of pictures, it's in what they write when they post, and it's in just how they manage their social media. So when I started out in personal branding, I didn't have a coach, I didn't have a consultant. And what I did was to study personal branding through online courses and articles and the likes. But then the practical aspects of it, I chose someone that has attained the level of success that I aspire to attain. And I studied their brand. I studied how they dress when they appear on TV, how they speak when they're on radio, the type of language that they use when they write a tweet, and things like that. And I saw that there is a level of attention and detail that they put into their content. And because they are intentional and consistent about it, ultimately they stand out. And that's exactly what I did with my own brand. Because when I started out as a consultant and as a public speaker as well, I basically didn't have any name that was well known. So I had to build up the name to be seen as an expert, to be seen as a thought leader in this field. And I did that through consistency and attention to detail, especially when it comes to things like quality of pictures that you post online. You'd want to ensure that whatever you post online, you look at the quality of the picture, how you are dressed in the picture, how you are posing, and the background of the picture as well. Because most people post randomly. So anyone that is intentional and who is intentional and tactical about what they put up, they will easily stand out from the crowd.
Interesting. Oh, Pako, I don't want to run out of time, but I know there'll be some people wanting to get in touch with you. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm loving the conversation as well. So for people to get in touch with me, I'm on different social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok and Instagram as Pako Moshaga. I also have a website, that's talitakumi.co.bw. Talita Kumi, just like the Bible verse. So that's how they can reach out to me.
You have to say that again. I didn't get it. What's the website?
Okay, it's Talita Kumi.
Okay, can you spell it for us?
Okay,
United
no
States
problem.
people?
It's TALITHA. That's Talita. Then CUMI, one word, lowercase. talitakumi.co.bw.
Okay, very good. Well, great. Well, this has been great. So I've got a triple zinger here as your last question / questions. So, kind of clarifying, what's the difference between refreshing a brand versus a rebranding effort? How much time should business owners be spending on that? And how often should you be updating it? Or is this like an ongoing thing?
All right. So a brand refresh is more like sharpening your look or your messaging or the tone of your brand. So it's when you have an existing brand and you just want to refine it further and make it more pronounced or more relevant to the times. Then rebranding is more of an overhaul of your brand. It's basically saying, I've been known to be a singer. I now want to rebrand as an actor. So it's all about changing everything altogether and just uprooting it all, or maybe not uprooting, but basically making a major change in what people know you for and how people see you. Then in terms of, I think the second one was how much time people should spend on this in terms of a personal brand and a business brand. So I'd say you want to spend maybe a third of the amount of time you spend on your business brand, because if you have a strong personal brand that people value and respect and like, the same value and respect that they have for your personal brand, they immediately, or by default rather, transfer that to your business brand.
Uh-huh.
Because when we do business with the person that we know as the business owner or the
Okay.
sales rep. So if I have trust and confidence in the person, I extend that same brand equity to their business, to their company. I say, oh, I know him, or he's a stand-up guy, whatever he's into, I'm definitely going to back it because I know the kind of person that he is. And
Uh-huh.
so as you invest in your personal brand, you get the value in your business brand as well. And,
Okay.
and it works conversely as well. If people don't have much faith in you as a person, it's hard to convince them to trust the business that you are now backing.
Yeah.
Then the third one, I actually forgot it. So
How much
please come
time should
again.
you be spending, or
Or how much
now it
time?
wasn't really on business or personal, but just in general, as a part of your business function, how much is this something you do ongoing? Is this something you should relook at every 3 years, every year? Even if you have a brand, not necessarily rebranding, but just refreshing, keeping it up to date. What kind of time investment do you recommend?
All right. So, I mean, reviewing your brand, I'd say half yearly to annually should be enough, because your brand is an extension of your persona. So ideally, your persona shouldn't be changing regularly. And
Yeah.
so every 6 months would be a good time to just touch base and just see where your brand is, if it's going in the direction that you wish for it to go,
Mhm.
and really for you to gauge if your brand is moving where you wanted to. It's in seeing, are you getting opportunities that you desire to get? Are you getting recognized more? Are you getting more sales, more business? So you need to have a measure that you use to assess whether the work that you're putting in is really panning out.
Okay.
And yeah,
Go ahead. Mhm.
yeah, and managing your brand really shouldn't feel like work.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it should be a fun exercise and experience, because you don't want to dread it all and do it dragging your feet and stuff, because then it'll just be a painful process. So learn to love it, learn to enjoy it, and above all, be authentic in branding yourself.
Mhm. Well, Paco, this was really fantastic. I really love your simplicity, and you're very slow and confident in how you speak, and it's very clear and it makes a ton of sense. So thank you so much for being a guest, for what you're doing. And it really is an inside job. I'm glad you kind of started us off in that direction. So it's unquestionable that a well-written book helps you get your authentic brand message out into the world. So, and that could be a part of your brand strategy, I would imagine. So there are many different professionals who help authors and support authors in a variety of ways.